You all know Unending Dawn, Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, Duet Night Abyss, Arknights, Endfield. They're all really incredible looking upcoming gacha games. And as of the last 48 hours, according to a case study posted over on GameIndustry.biz, only one of them is going to succeed. The other four are all going to fail and ultimately shut down. Now, before we go ahead and jump into this video, I do want to point out real quick, the Zenless Zone Zero beta has just started, and Mrs. Stix and I were going to be live streaming on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday, every single day at roughly 6 p.m. through 10 p.m., maybe midnight Eastern Standard Time. We'd love for you to come on over and join us as we play through the game, get footage, so I can do a dedicated video on it for all of you. And of course, because we kind of like some of you, and it'd be fun to play alongside you. Report: 83% of mobile games fail in the 3 years after launch. Superscale's research also finds that 43% of games were dropped during development. So 83%, that means 83 gacha games out of 100 are going to fail 3 years after launch. 43% of announced gacha games are actually going to fail to even make it to launch. Those are absolutely crazy numbers. So when we all discuss upcoming gacha games, when we display them, when we look at trailers for them, whenever they're announced, half of them are never going to see the light of day. And that's kind of alarming. New research from mobile revenue growth engine Superscale has found that 83% of launched mobile games fail within 3 years, while 43% are canceled during development. And if you think about it, I do dedicated videos pretty much monthly on upcoming gacha games releasing in each respective month, and also simultaneously gacha games that shut down in each respective month. And every month there are approximately 5 to 10 gacha games that come out and about 8 to 15 that shut down. So at this current rate, more are shutting down than there are that are releasing. Before we go any deeper though, I want to take a moment here to thank our incredible patrons over on Patreon who allow for me to continue to do dedicated videos like this every single day. You guys are crazy and I love you all. Now back to the video. Conducted by Atomic Research, Superscale's Good Games Don't Die report was published this week and is based on interviews with 500 game developers in the UK and the United States. This does not count Chinese, Korean, or Japanese though. According to the report, 76% of launched games reach peak revenue within the first year, but only 4% reach this peak during the second year. I mean, that is definitely not the case for Genshin Impact. That is the case for Tower Fantasy, Blue Archive, Arknights, Epic 7. There are probably dozens of gacha games that actually make more money now than they did a few years ago. The report also found that while over half of developers use live ops in their games, 38% don't release regular content or updates, with less than half releasing monthly updates to their games, leading to just 5% of games receiving support 7 years post-launch. 38% don't release regular content or updates, which is crazy because as someone that has a gacha related channel that does videos on gacha games regularly, I don't think there has ever been a month where Blue Archive or Arknights or Genshin Impact or some, the big gacha games didn't release something for people to engage with. I know like Genshin, Honkai, Tower Fantasy, like a lot of gacha games, they release like every 4 to 6 weeks a major patch, but there are also small updates applied in between then, events that are going on, new limited banners, things to engage with and things to do that aren't necessarily large content updates. But 38% don't release regular content or updates. I wonder what kind of time frame this is set within, with less than half releasing monthly updates. 5% of games receiving support 7 years post-launch. That is absolutely astonishing. Despite the failure rate of new titles, 78% of developers prefer working on them. They prefer working on the gacha games that are failing. Okay. However, over a third of respondents said that uncertainty in the industry is stopping them from developing new games, with 30% feeling as though the current market is too difficult to succeed. See, this right here, this is the difference between UK and US developers, because UK and US developers are sitting here and they're like, the uncertainty of the future is stopping me from developing new games. China, on the other hand, is like, you know what? Here are 10 new games that are all identical to one another with slightly varied graphics, slightly varied gameplay, and people just kind of eat it up. They achieve monumental success. They make hundreds of millions of dollars in their first year. And admittedly, quite a few of them also fail to achieve absolutely anything. Many Billy games, as an example here, are horrible and fail to ever take off. But there are numerous Chinese gacha games released every single year to critical acclaim. It's very interesting that the US and UK developers are of a very different mindset. This comes as a result of 2/3 of studios having to conduct layoffs, downsize, or cut budgets, according to Superscale's report, with 29% of developers cutting their UA budget. Wow, 2/3 of studios having to conduct layoffs, downsize, or cut budgets. I mean, if you think about it, even Kudo, who's developing Wuthering Waves and who develops Punishing Gray Raven, had to lay off some of their workers, I think it was earlier this year. These are volatile times for the games industry, says Superscale CEO and founder Ivan Trantic. Many mobile game developers are finding it hard to remain profitable in the face of challenges such as ATT. Well, clearly they don't have hot enough waifus, because Asian gacha games are having absolutely no problem seeing a profit. Unless you're Tower of Fantasy. Heavy competition in a mature mobile market. Gacha gamers, mature. Not typically two terms that go hand in hand. And macroeconomic conditions like high inflation. He continued, findings from the Good Games Don't Die white paper serve as a wake-up call for the industry, a source of inspiration with actionable data, equipping developers and publishers with insight on how revenue can be maximized across their portfolio for games both new and old. So basically what I'm seeing here is this is concerning. This is definitely a concerning trend for games that aren't developed in Asia, for games that are developed in the West, gacha games that are developed in the West, and more than just developed in the West, but gacha games that are published in the West are running into issues with revenue, are running into issues growing and succeeding. Asian games in the Asian market are not to the same degree and extent, but I feel like at the same time, this is probably factoring a lot of non-gacha specific, like waifu specific gacha games, like Arknights and Punishing Gray Raven and Azure Lane and Epic 7. So while this is definitely concerning news because this affects the entire world. This is about developing and publishing games, of course, to the Western market. So you and me who play these games in English, this is definitely concerning. But at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily as concerning as the blanket statement. 83% of mobile games, the whole like Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, Unending Dawn, Project Mugen, Arknights, Endfield, like 4 of them failing and only 1 succeeding leads you to believe. I am curious to see what happens in the future. This is definitely bad, it is, but at the same time, I don't think it's as bad as they're making it seem. Now, if this is absolutely no interest to you, then you know what? That's perfectly fine. I got 2 different videos on screen right now. That might be.